Hello, Renaissance learners, especially you, Teach. Here I'm going to explain what a city-state needs to be successful and to thrive. The first is government buildings. That is probably one of the most important things it needs. Because what is a city without its leader? And what is a leader without its city? I'll get more into that later. But for now, we're going to talk about the government buildings. There's usually a capital. The capital is where usually the leader of the city-state, in which case, in Italy, I believe in Venice, it was the Medicis that ruled Venice, and I'm pretty sure all of Italy as well. Um, then it'll have minor government buildings, such as like a Congress building if it's a democratic society. Might have a meeting hall and other kinds of diplomatic areas where people would meet and discuss certain topics and stuff. Switch hands there. Alright. So, after that comes probably another one of the most important things is actually craftsmen. Because that's what draws people to your city to buy the fine goods and arts that come from your city. Like in Venice, you had Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, but they traveled the countryside looking for people to hire them to do great artwork, like David and the Sixtine Chapel, and all that stuff. So, yeah. And then after the artisan buildings, which will have art studios, science laboratories, is in the craftsman area, create new paints for the artists, create new medicines, and all that, where the scientists worked, like Sir Francis Bacon and Leonardo da Vinci as well, because Leonardo da Vinci did everything. Interesting fact about Sir Francis Bacon: death by frozen chicken. That's right, death by frozen chicken. Alright, switch hands again. Alright, so, after you have the diplomatic buildings and you have the artisan buildings, comes the residential buildings, where everybody lives. Although some government leaders and artisans would live in places above their workshops for easier access and, I guess, less money to spend, less money having to be dished out for housing. But yeah, you have houses. Early apartments, really. They had a lot of those in the inner area of the cities like Venice. Mini apartment buildings, though. It's like basically condos, like a house divided into two different condos. Then out in the countryside, there are the farmhouses and all the farmlands. And next, onto the fourth, I believe, most important thing, is the agricultural land, where you get all your food. Sorry. I know that should be number one, but in the inner city, you have ports and stuff to bring in from other countries. So, yeah. Have your agricultural, you have your residential, you have your diplomatic, and you have your artistic, or craftsman buildings. Another is industrial buildings, not to be confused with artistic buildings, because industrial buildings are places like docks and warehouses and factories that supply all your hard goods, and which is traded out to the merchants, which will bring it to distant lands and such, and to load it onto the docks. And which brings me to the docks. Docks also extremely important. If you do not have docks, you are a farming village back then. Because back then, every self-respecting city had docks. Like now, like Memphis, Tennessee is like a huge city. It's landlocked. No ports. But that's because it has airplanes and trucks to carry everything in. While every big city had to have a port to bring all the goods in from other countries back then, because they had no trucks, they had no airplanes, so everything had to be carried by merchants, and that was a terrible way to live, so that's why all the other ones were farming communities. While the big cities were on the coast, because of docks. City centers, like marketplaces, where the many vendors would set up their stands, and they might have some entertainment. A preacher might come out and preach the word of God every once in a while. Some people might throw eggs at him if they're from a different religious group. And which brings you on to religious buildings. cathedrals, churches, meeting houses, whatever they were called where you lived, were also very vital. Because back then, God was everything. Life was considered crap. Death was better than life to them. That was very strong in the Middle Ages, less so in the Renaissance, because it was a happier time after the Black Death. Like, we survived. Awesome. We're going to live our lives to the fullest. And just went on and on and on. And so that's why we have a lot of Renaissance fairs, I guess, to kind of commemorate that. But, yeah, that was my extremely short video, I guess, on the very vital parameters of the city-state government, artistic, residential, agricultural, and trade and industrial areas that are vital to its survival. Later.